One way that I like to describe how this process works is that it kind of makes you feel like a kid again. And I say that as a 48-year-old who has a 10-year-old kid. And usually I think people at my age, like you'd be thinking that things are starting to go downhill and you're getting older, you're feeling older, and you're transitioning to a different phase of your life. It's like up until maybe your 40s, you're very kind of aggressive and whatnot. And I see that in friends and I see that in family members. And that I don't relate at all when I'm doing this process. Like I related when I was not doing well some years ago, but now I really think that the way I view life and the way I feel every day is much more like when I was in my 20s. And I think that that's really cool. And today I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. I think it's a special part of this process. And so part of it is that when you do this, right? And I'm talking about when you do this for an extended period, like I'm already, on my fourth year of improving with this process, doing more or less the same thing, but just, maybe a little bit better and faster than I did. But you get very used to how the process works and you accept that not only it works, but that you're getting a little bit better every day. Right. And you feel it. You see it, you feel it, and it just becomes something you accept as being the truth. And so you feel more energy, you feel like younger. You almost feel like every day you're getting a little bit younger. All this stuff that people talk about aging, like it just doesn't, like you don't see it. Like it's not relevant to your life, is the way you start to feel. And, some people think that you're just making it up, right? But like the people close to you, they begin to, I think, accept it as that is, your reality. And for yourself, you start asking, okay, like when does this end? When do I stop getting better? When is age finally going to hit me? Right. And I'm going to start thinking like, someone that's about to turn 50 years old, because the way I think is more like someone that's about to turn 30 years old. Right. And I'm not trying to, like, it's not like I'm going to some therapist and trying to brainwash myself to think like I'm 30 years old. I just naturally do in certain respects. Another thing that I like to compare it to is the AI. And the reason for that is, like, when you think about AI and some of the things that you'll hear is that the AI we have today will be the dumbest AI you have ever used in your life, right? Because it only gets better. And when you understand how this process works and how this biomechanics work, and you've done it for an extended period and you realize, okay, like maybe there is no limiting factor, right? Maybe I just keep getting better until perfection, until I feel and look the best I ever have in my entire life. And that'll be crazy. And it might take a long time, but I'm only getting better until then, right? The aging process doesn't seem to pertain to me. And so that just becomes a very cool feeling, is that today was good, tomorrow's going to be better, right? And like living life thinking and almost knowing that tomorrow's always going to be better is pretty cool. And I think like that is where I really think it relates to being a kid. When I think about when I was in elementary school or high school and I was thinking about all my dreams and what I wanted to happen in my life and the things I wanted to do, like when you're a kid, you naturally think about the future and how it's going to be great. Hopefully. Like I know not all kids, like I had a pretty good childhood and I'm sure some kids had it tougher, but I think most kids, as long as things are okay in their life, like they're generally feeling like, wow, the future is going to be great. I have a lot of plans. And it's only later in life, the reality of aging and, like I started having my first major health issues in my mid-20s, and it started to little by little kind of eat away my ambition in life, right? Like my expectations for myself, because I was always having to go to doctors and I couldn't do physically some of the things that I wanted to do. And so it changed my outlook. I got further and further away from that fresh, dreamy, like everything's going to be great outlook that I had as a kid into more like the adult one. And that's what I think a lot of adults go through, that transition, some earlier than others. And I definitely did, right? And then I, like, for a lot of years, I kind of refused to accept that. I was like, no, I'm going to fight this. I'm going to figure it out, right? But then like 5, 10, 15, 20 years go by and you have it and it becomes your reality until I found this, right? And now my reality is different. Now I'm like, okay, I'm not good at something. I'm going to get better, right? Like, it's like, like you just say, screw all these things that I thought were limiting me before. I can do anything I want. Your life and how you feel starts to reflect that. because now all of a sudden you have the health, the energy, the drive, the neurology to make those things a reality. Like it truly does start to become a function of effort, right? We were taught as kids that, oh, everything is just a function of effort. And then adulthood teaches you, no, you can like try as much as you want and still you're going to be slightly screwed in certain things. But now I feel like, no, like I'm not screwed. I'm going to like make that happen. To wrap up, I think life as humans, from the time we're young, like we're taught that this aging process, how it works, and like, you start out and you're young, you're a kid, and you're full of dreams, and then you hit your adult life in your 20s, you make a lot of mistakes, but you're having a lot of fun, meeting a lot of people, going on adventures, and then 30s, like you start to think about your family and you're very serious about your career, and then 40s, like you're kind of peaked, and by the 50s and 60s, like you're on your way down, right? And then like you're dead at 70 or 80. That's what we've been taught to believe. But when you begin to see how this works, you begin to challenge all of that. Like, what if it doesn't have to be like that? Like, what if it just goes like this? Like, what if I feel great and everything's up and up in my 20s, right? And then even more so in my 30s and 40s and 50s, 60s, 70s, like, and I feel great even at more like 80s, 90s, and beyond. And when you think about the psychological impact of that, hey, maybe we look and function great well past 100 years old, and screw what human history has taught us because they didn't understand these simple biomechanics, it gives you a very different perspective on life. Like I can tell you that I look at my life and my future very different now, and I do it effortlessly. So I hope that some of you guys doing the process, that you also kind of, you might understand me at some point. Thank you.